Good morning. Welcome to the April 11th, 2024 meeting of the Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee. We'll start with a roll call. David Nash is here. Lance Crawford.
Here.
David Bartholomew. Jamie Benshoff.
Here.
Elvia Diaz.
Here.
Rick Freeman.
Here.
Lacey Hoyle. Claire Hubbard. Marcus Laws. Tim McEllier. Celeste Ordaway. Joelle Steininger. So we are short a quorum. A couple of folks, several folks have indicated that they can't come today, but we do expect a couple more to come. But we'll go ahead and get started for information. We won't take any votes until we have a quorum. Okay, so we'll skip the minutes for now, and somebody remind me to come back to that when we have a quorum. Our community value for this month is build trust through unity, collaboration, and justice. There will be meaningful communication and collaboration between leadership, providers, systems, people experiencing homelessness, and the community to create transparency and trust. Any thoughts on this goal? All right. First item on the agenda is a presentation from helping at-risk kids. Peter, are you?
Yeah. Good. So there's slide number one. Do we have a number one?
Isn't that your number one?
On the number on the top of the slide?
Oh, you know what? I think you're, I'm sorry.
Peter, pull the mic a little closer to you.
Hello.
That's good.
I can't copy you.
Sorry, I can't use someone else's computer.
Where are we going?
Can you go to the Hyatt page? On the Hyatt website.
Sorry.
There's no rush. If you'd like to sit down, it's fine.
I like to stand up, actually. I work always standing, otherwise body disappears.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep going. There. Yep.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, that's the full document. Here you go. Okay. Thanks. A month ago, I mentioned that we were looking at a possibility of doing a project, trying to get some grant money, which might be useful to fill an interim gap or two in preventing homelessness. And as it mentions in what may be a title, it's youth focused. So we're not interested, or we're concerned but not interested in trying to provide services for men and women or families, couples without kids. We're interested in the youth in the community. That's the title of the organization, Helping At-Risk Kids. And the idea is to just be a conduit for funding for organizations that are dealing with homelessness, and to try to be able to provide financial resources and some ability to gather statistics and provide them to the HMIS so that people on the continuum of care can understand what needs are being met and what needs are not being met by homeless youth in the community, either with families or on their own. We do a lot of that. So, but we're not interested in working in building shelters and dealing directly with the children. We're interested in being able to provide the resources that seem to be missing. Okay, so a purpose. It's interim, as I said, please. Next. So, as it says up there, we want to be collaborating with other organizations, Homeward Bound, Elida Homes, VRQ, I mean, whoever it is that has a need to either help prevent homelessness or short-term solutions for people who are transitioning to homes from homelessness, but there's a gap in their ability to care for these people. So we want to provide support. Next, I'll go through these quickly. Okay, so this basically talks about how much contact we're getting. Carol, who is from HARC also, says she just got 4 more requests today for support. We don't have a budget. We've allocated funds, maybe $2,500 a month from the funds that we have available that weren't intended for this purpose, but we have grants, so we're pulling money from grants in order to cover needs. But she got 4 requests today. Kids sleeping in tent, they came from, 3 of them came, as I understand it, Carol can explain this better, 1 from Elida Homes, 3 from McKinney-Vento people, 2 I think came from Shannon Boyd in Buncombe County, and 1 from Jordan Mayhew in Asheville City Schools. Well, they're coming to us because they don't have an ability to support these needs of to prevent homelessness or to cover short periods. Next. Again, this is basically what I just said. We can cover some cases. We also, though, have, and we're responding to social workers at the schools or the McKinney-Vento people who send us these requests. And we can cover the most urgent, maybe, but we can't, with the money that we have, and obviously the money that's available in the community, these needs can't be covered in the short term. And all of this, remember, we're looking forward to the continuum of care and all of its collaborators and members to take care of this in the longer term. We're talking about interim support here for people who have immediate needs. Yes. And this is basically the same as what I have already said. Temporary, okay. It's up to continuum of care, of which we are a member, to develop the long-term solutions. Next. Okay, these implementation steps that we're passing through at this point, not very quickly. You'll see in a second, I think, that we developed a survey, and we're going to try to gather information on the needs and get a good handle on it. Is it like 50 needs per year? Is it 5 per month? You know, that the organizations can't handle. And what, storage, utility payments, pending foreclosures. We talked to Pisco Legal and others. And we're trying to gather the information so that we can structure something correctly. And then what we'll do, we'll try to get all this information together, get an agreement on a grant implementation period, look for a potential funding agency for the grant, and which we think is possible, but we're not dealing with sustainable, durable solutions here. We're dealing with something that's interim, so some of those organizations that might be available may not be quick to fund this. I think Dogwood is a possibility locally. We're not going to go after HUD at this point because it'll take forever. And I don't know whether any funds are, Emily, if any funds are available this year or not. So, we'll try to get you guys to endorse it, or the COC, and we'll prepare an application, submit it, we'll manage the funds and the grants, get the funds to whoever needs them, and we'll provide information to the HMIS so that you'll have data based on what we've been able to find out and do. This is just a couple of the things that Marcus, who unfortunately had a conflict in the meeting, who works with us also on the board, is, important in making sure that we're reality-based in everything we think and do, because he's the most experienced on our board dealing with homelessness. We get 4 to 5 requests per month for immediate support, and I think, I think Carol is saying that that's a low estimate. But if the trend continues as we see it, it'll be 7 to 8 that will finally discover our unfilled needs. Rent, utilities, clothing, food, the ability of organizations to fill those needs sometimes, and there are obstacle to eligibility, etc. There are problems. And sometimes you look for resolutions that they go not only to us, ABCCN, Rescue Mission. There's some possibility of durable solutions, working on durable solutions for the family, and everybody thinks case management is important so far. We're looking at Dogwood and a few other sources for funding. Next. So there are 15 organizations, which I think is missing a couple. There's an organization I met this week with Black Men Mondays, which I also work with. Intensive Family Preservation Services or something. They work with DSS. I didn't know about them till Monday. It's one of the things you guys got to be concerned about. Make sure you know everybody who's out there. I mean, I've been working on this for a while. I don't, sources of assistance pop up. You can go slowly through that list, please. You'll see that we have 15, basically. And we're trying to get information from the 15 about how they're doing and what they need and where the gaps are, etc. Next. Is there next? Okay, that's what we put in there. There's a concept paper and there's a full survey, which we're using to get information from organizations who, these 15, but I think it's going to wind up to be 17 or 18. We had a couple more that seem to be stakeholders and providers or in this. And that's basically it. The idea is if we find good information, we find needs, we come back to you guys and say, do you want us to do this? All right? And is what we're talking about as far as a strategy or an implementation plan, does it work for you? Get feedback, see whether you can endorse this thing, and if you don't want to endorse it, we'll do something else. It's just that we think that there is a real gap in the short term, not in the long term, hopefully, but in the short term. And, hey, come on. Come on, it's also will talk, and that's Kyle Turner, and that's Carol King. We have 4 people here today. I'm just a member of the grant committee. I'm not the face of HARC. Okay, so we have multiple grants, and this is one that I am working on. So thank you. If there are questions, or there are copies of the concept paper and the survey that we're using, and if anybody is in an organization that's been asked to do a survey or provide information, appreciate your helping us by giving us data, and one of us will be following up on initial contacts with you.
I was just thinking about you. What is the organization you're with again?
It's helping at-risk kids. HARC. Oh,
I'm with Alive Homes.
Is that one of your collaborative?
oh yeah,
Oh, good.
very much so.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I've been over there, and a few of us have been over there, and we're looking for ways to help Elida Homes do what Elida Homes does. We're not looking to do what they do, but provide support to them to get their job done. There are organizations here which are struggling at this point. Fiscal Legal Services, Edmund Charities, everybody knows this. Funding's cut. They don't have the funds to do what they used to do, or to continue what they are doing. This is for youth who are homeless or may become homeless. Okay. HARC, for anybody that doesn't know, has been around for 33 years. We used to be called the Guardian Ad Litem Association of Buncombe County, and many of us are Guardian Ad Litems, me included. But we had a name change because Rowley decided they didn't like that name, and in their wisdom, as they don't like a lot of things in Asheville, it appears. But I didn't say that. So please, that's what it is. I don't want to take up more of your time, but questions there?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could share your thoughts on what you'd like to see the COC do and what roles you guys would want to play in the COC, since the board is yet to be seated, and, you know, we put the minimum number of committees in so that the board would have more latitude to create other committees. I mean, in your perfect world, with endorsement, just say a couple words or sentences about how you'd like to see that turn out.
No, it's all about collaboration and coordination. Get most productivity and out of your resources, implement with the most efficiency, not overlap, not duplicate. I think that the COC is one of the good federal ideas. HUD, I think, got that right. Like everybody talk to everybody. But there are a lot of things that the COC could do which are innovative and hopefully will do, such as something that appeared in the paper today about zoning. Restrictive rather than permissive. I mean, there should be, an emphasis on moving people in poverty out of horrible neighborhoods, or living situations, and integrating them in better communities so the children have, role models where they live, where it's not dangerous to go outside. And, their achievements will be, minority kids will be achieving at the same level as white kids. You look at places like New Jersey, and this is what's happened. And because HUB will finance, and the state will finance those areas where the people in poverty are being integrated with the rest of the community. So there's a lot of things that COC can do. The role we play is a member of the COC. We're waiting to hear what the COC wants and needs. And hopefully you'll get a good board, and they'll come up with some innovative and effective ideas. We're here and available. Like I say, this has come about because we're sort of overwhelmed by requests for support, and we don't have the budget for it. So do we go after or not?
Elvia.
Pardon me, a little laryngitis. I guess this is a kind of a dual question and a statement. I guess that this is one of the things that I've been doing since my college years, working towards trying to transition kids coming out of foster care and moving them directly into their single one-bedroom apartments and moving them into education and guiding them through college and giving them living skills, and making sure that they graduate. And I like the way that you've used the term gap funding and making sure that when our citizens can't pay their bills, that there's at least 1 to 2 months of how we pay for things that they can't do, and that there's a lack of that. I would like to know how what you're doing now is working, and in what way it's working for those citizens now, and how you're doing it, meaning what is your yes and no platform?
Like I said, we have a number of different grants, and Carol can address this probably better than me, but it's these grants fund children in the system, Department of Social Services, abused and neglected kids who have been removed from families or separated one way or another, and we provide whatever supports they need to normalize their lives. We work with youth transitioning out of DSS to try to help them maintain their lives and, as we would love them to do, and progress rather than fall into pregnancy or incarceration at about 70% levels, I understand presently at some point. And we're working with the homeless in the high schools in Buncombe County. We've been focusing on NK Merwin, but there are 184 homeless high school kids, according to McKinney-Vento, in 9 different Buncombe County high schools. And we're only dealing with 80, so we're talking to Dogwood, which gave us the grant to do that, to expand it to all 9 of the Buncombe County high schools. So DSS kids, aging out kids, homeless high school kids, and it's whatever we can do for them. Each of the grants we received is a little different, but they're all sort of flexible. And we have a good group of local granting organizations. Community Foundation, Dogwood, etc., but and some others. We feel that the funds are available, but the collaboration, coordination, and the use of funds, and we're sort of limited. We are dealing with kids. And there's more needs than just the kids. So I don't know if I answered or not, Ilvia.
No, but it helps me shape some other ideas as to like what is kind of missing if we have, children who want to go to school or can't go to school and don't have a place to live, and then we have boarding schools and places where people can go and come as they want, and then we, what kind of we're looking at towards having places for people to learn and live in classrooms and outdoor classrooms, and just sort of shaping kind of things that we need to maybe bring our people together and build a community.
I think I'm looking forward to knowing you more than the few months that I have known you. Ideas are good, it's implementation, and more implementers.
Right. I mean, I mean, I can understand that the boarding school can also look like something that is like, but I'm not trying to imprison children either, but to say that, like, if you need a place to sleep and learn and to grow together, and I mean, I'm just trying to think outside the box to protect people from harm from others who are, and building a behavioral health sort of idea and setting that says we're all one, that we're together. So.
I'm on your side.
I'd really like to thank my colleague Alvia for her question and for your answer. That really brought Hark into focus for me. I didn't have a clear idea. So thank you for the information.
Thank you. Thank you for the time and consideration of what we're talking about. A little bit of feedback will go a long way with us, because we are not you. And you have different perspectives and different experiences, and we need those to get a design right and maybe go forward. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Peter. Next item on our agenda is the fiscal year 23 system performance measures. Charles.
Hi, good morning. A couple months ago, we submitted the system performance measures to HUD, and so we'll review some of the highlights on what these numbers showed. A little bit about the system performance measures. They were established by an amendment to the McKinney-Vento Act in 2009. It measures how well homeless services work as a coordinated system to make homelessness rare and brief. And it's a competitive element in HUD's annual COC program review competition. So last month, if you recall, Emily reviewed the results of the COC debrief. These numbers feed into that review process. It uses data from emergency shelters, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, street outreach, and transition housing. The 6 measures that they have in the system performance measures is they're looking to see how well we're reducing length of time persons remain homeless, we're reducing returns to homelessness after permanent housing placement, we're reducing number of persons experiencing homelessness, we're increasing the employment and income growth for homeless persons, we are reducing first-time homelessness, and we are helping individuals increase in obtaining or maintaining their housing. These were the agencies of the data that was included in the system performance measures, and this is for the report year from October 2022 to September 2023, which is the standard HUD report year. You have ABCCM with their rapid rehousing project for vets, known as Support Services for Veterans Families. You have Street Outreach, Hope, and Path programs, Transformation Village, and Veterans Restoration Quarters. You have Elida Homes with their ESTA program. You have First at Blue Ridge with their Vets First program, Haywood Street Congregation, Homeward Bound with permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing for civilians, and rapid rehousing for veterans. They also have an SSVF program, their street outreach program, and then of course the Salvation Army. So on measure 1, length of time persons remain homeless, is the total number of people served with bed nights in emergency shelters in our transitional housing. In the 2023 HUD COC debrief that Emily talked about last month. NC 501 received a rating of 5 out of a possible 13 points on this particular measure. You can see that for emergency shelter from the 2022 to 2023, our average length of time homeless went down from 122 to 68 days. When you add transitional housing, there was not as much of a drop between 218 to 221. So average length of time homeless for just emergency shelters went down by 44% from the prior year. However, we suspect for 2021 and 2022 that the reason the length of time homeless is so long is because of COVID-related non-congregate shelters with increased lengths of stay. When you include transitional housing, the length of time homeless remains relatively unchanged over a 3-year period. The second measure, returns to homelessness from housing, measures the extent to which people who exit homelessness into permanent housing later return to homelessness, which includes people who exited housing in the 2 years prior to the report period. So again, with the COC debrief, we received a rating of 1.5 out of a possible 8 points on the COC strategy to reduce rates of returns to homelessness. There you see a breakdown of the rates of returns. There is some reduction, but overall, returns to homelessness within 2 years did go down slightly by 2%. The number of homeless persons, measure 3, is the change in the total number of people experiencing homelessness based on the point in time count rather than just HMIS data. You see in 2023, we reported a total of 573. Now that is, I have to emphasize 2023 numbers. 2024 numbers will be announced by Emily at the next COC meeting. The overall PIC count went down by 10% from 2022 to 2023. A second part of Measure 3, number of homeless persons, is the number of sheltered people experiencing homelessness based on HMIS data as opposed to PIT data. And the total deduplicates to account for people who stayed in multiple programs. So there we got an overall count of 781. The number of sheltered homeless persons decreased slightly by 4%. Measure 4, employment and income growth. This measures changes in earned or non-employment income, but only for participants in COC-funded programs. In our COC, in this reported period, that means homeward bound permanent supportive housing as helpmate rapid rehousing is precluded from participating in HMIS. In our COC debrief, our rating was a 4 out of a possible 7 points on the COC strategy for increasing employment cash income. So the employment income growth change decreased by 18%. One thing that HUD shared in their monthly seminars is that they are seeing this as a trend nationally, that all COCs are seeing a gradual decline over the past several years in employment and income growth. Measure 5, first-time homeless, measures the number of people entering the system with no prior enrollments in HMIS in the past 2 years. In our COC debrief, we have a rating of 3 out of 3, determining risk factors for first-time homelessness. First-time homelessness in our numbers for this submission decreased from the prior year by 18%. Last measure, measure 6, obtain and or maintain housing, measures the number of people exiting homelessness into permanent housing and the number of people in permanent housing projects who retain housing. Our COC debrief received a rating out of 10 out of possible 13 points. The permanent supportive housing success retention rate went down slightly by 4%. Emergency shelter, transition housing, and rapid rehousing went down by 16%. So our overall survey outcomes for the length of time persons remain homeless, it went down 44%. In terms of looking at the glass as half full, not half empty, returns to homelessness after permanent housing placement went down 2%. Reduction in number of persons experiencing homelessness went down 10%. Employment and income growth for homeless persons went down 18%, which is the wrong direction. Reduction in first-time homelessness went down 18%, and obtain or maintaining housing went down 20%, which again is the wrong direction. Some key takeaways: that this is a bird's eye view of how well our HMIS participating providers impact homelessness as a system. Asheville Buncombe's report is for the HUD fiscal year 2022-2023 and showed an improvement in 4 out of 6 HUD metrics. Agencies continue to respond well to guidance from division staff on how to monitor data quality control in their day-to-day workflows. Lower performing scores in the COC debrief should improve with COC strategic planning intended to problem solve how to better coordinate our homeless system. And these updated measures will be available soon on the city's website. And the full data set and submission for our 2023 system performance measures will be posted and available. Are there any questions?
I have one that struck me, and it may not, the answer may not be in the data, but the returns to homelessness and the HUD debrief of 1.5 out of 8. Is there an overriding reason for like economic or financial return to homelessness? Is there any information on that?
In terms of in our data of the people that would have shown that they did return to homelessness as to why they returned to homelessness, that's not something that's in the system performance measures. It's something we can potentially look at to see what's in there. It partly depends on whether agencies are taking the time to capture that information. So that would be something the COC could establish as a local requirement that they would want to keep an eye on.
So HMIS currently doesn't have a spot for that? An answer to that question? HMIS doesn't currently have a data field for the why, some kind of a categorized thing?
I think we would need to establish which data elements are in HMIS that we would want to use to inform us how we're going to measure that metric. And then we would need to explain to agencies what we would expect them to capture so that we could record that.
I'll just add to that the returns to homelessness is looking at when people reappear in our community system, meaning they've engaged with a program that does enter data into HMIS. That's how we know that they have returned to homelessness. And when someone is newly entering a program, there is an entry assessment in HMIS that asks some historical information, like where, homelessness history, where people directly coming from, what is their income at the time, and those kinds of things. So it's not exactly apples to apples, but we could extrapolate some trends from that data, but would take a real kind of granular deep dive to get to that.
Yeah, and there are some holes because, for one, we have a few agencies that are pretty large players in our community that don't do HMIS. And so if that person goes to that provider, we're not going to pick that person's up. So they could have returned to homelessness, we just don't know about it in our data. The other piece of that is agencies, I'm in the process of doing the HMIS audits right now, and it's certainly a learning process for agencies to try to figure out how to integrate these HMIS requirements into their standard day-to-day business workflows. And sometimes it can be a challenge for them to figure out how to do that, which I think is probably something the System Performance Committee would want to take a look at in terms of how to better equip agencies to meet these HMIS data requirements.
So the last HIAT meeting that we had, at the end, I said we're putting a lot of focus on getting people into housing, but we need to put equal focus on housing retention, and I think the numbers you just shared board that out. So as we move forward with the new COC and that sort of thing, I think that that's something really important, and equally as important as getting people into housing is keeping them there. So, I would challenge our new COC to really put a lot of focus on that, maybe have some subcommittees to really, dive into that and look at it and look at processes and that sort of thing, and what we can do to make outreach to folks when they're in housing to eliminate barriers and obstacles that would cause them to fall back into homelessness. And I think if we can successfully put a program together to do that, which I'm 100% certain we can, those numbers will come back to where they, need to be and be even better. So again, just want to challenge our new COC to really put equal focus on that, because again, that's super, super important is maintaining that housing once we get them in it.
We also should be able, and this is the kind of work that we expect the System Performance Committee will do, but we also should be able to look at trends in the data. So can we see, if we get granular with who those individuals are, can we see trends in which programs people were in, or which types of interventions they had in order to exit homelessness, so that we can really isolate what we need to put some extra support around?
All good topics that would be important for, a deep dive in a subcommittee to really get into.
I would reiterate that the importance, HUD's expectations can be very broad and general, and they certainly have, on a national level, some value, but the more local you make them, the more they depend on the COCs to make decisions locally about what they want to focus on and what metrics they think are critical. So I definitely think that, to your point, that is a discussion that the local COC could. Right now, we don't have anybody having that discussion here in our community.
Right. Well, again, I think, we put a lot of, and I'm not, I don't think speaking out of turn to anybody in this room, a lot of resources into, getting folks into housing and working with them and that sort of thing. And the return on that investment and time that we made is longevity, in housing. So, again, if we're going to invest all that in getting people in housing, we need to have an equal investment in keeping them there.
And let me just rephrase slightly. We don't have anybody locally talking about our HMIS data. There are lots of conversations happening with a lot of different groups, but the whole point of the COC is to try to start collaborating those discussions, of which HMIS data would be a part of that.
All right, thanks, Charles. Next item is compensation for HIAC members, and this is particularly focused on HIAC members who are people with lived experience of homelessness and who want to be compensated for their time. We have had quite a bit of work over the last 12 to 13 months, and we've had good participation from our members who have experienced homelessness and who aren't otherwise employed. And I guess we don't have a quorum to vote today, but I would like to pull together a small work group to discuss this and make a recommendation to the city and county about the past. And then I think it'll need to fall to the new COC board to discuss that issue going forward and develop resources to really provide compensation.
Yeah, a couple of things about this. Kim Roney, Council Liaison to the HIAC. In addition to having good attendance, we've had above and beyond attendance, a lot of attendance in work group meetings and getting us ready for the COC. The closest example we have to paying stipends to people with lived experience is our Community Reparations Commission. There's also the Durham models. We've talked a little bit about that. We also have invoices that are outstanding that have been submitted for the time and energy that's been put in. So though there can't be a formal recommendation today, are you suggesting that we wait until a work group brings forward a recommendation to the next meeting, or should there be an informal recommendation today?
I'm suggesting that we have a small work group to meet quickly and discuss it before the next meeting. If we feel like we can make a recommendation, I mean, from my perspective, folks should be compensated, folks who need it and want it should be compensated at least as much as the Reparations Commission members are being compensated, but that's a relatively low amount compared to invoices received, so.
I
I
could
would-
look up our past recommendation, but we did already have a recommendation from this body that was general, that was submitted to the city council and the county commission. And I know the county commission chair brought it up in our joint meeting of city and county. What I'm not clear on is if you were to make a recommendation, what you would be making a recommendation to, like if there's a specific fund that's been identified. If it would help, maybe we could help on the back end with identifying where the funding stream would come from.
I think what you all had done in the past was express support rather than kind of a specific recommendation around a framework or compensation amounts, those kinds of things. I would suggest that you not make a recommendation today only because you don't have quorum, so can't take formal action to make that recommendation, which I think would be more valuable.
So maybe we could take the former general recommendation while they're forming the work group and bring forward some maybe staff or city recommendations. We might also want to touch base with the county because it's the city-county board.
I certainly think the new COC would appreciate any solid research on how this is done elsewhere and what the payment ranges are and what you have to do to qualify for stipends and all that sort of thing. Anything that, a little bit like we looked at 15 different charters in order to find something, if people could get that ready, maybe that would cause some payment now and a one-time kind of thing from the city or the county, but it would certainly speed that for any committee or work group that would be established under the new COC to then go faster at making their decision and figuring out where their funding is coming from.
I think you're right, Rick. And I also think if we leave lingering issues from this body to carry forward to the COC, then it may discourage people from participating in the new continuum of care, seeing that we've left lingering issues for people with lived experience.
I'm also, excuse me, laryngitis. I'm also willing to state that this has been a lingering issue, and that I'm also willing to be a leading city in making decisions for other cities so that they can go, well, what is Asheville doing? Rather than me going, what are other cities doing? We do that a lot. I think we can lead.
Thank you, Althea.
So, any volunteers for this work group, among the group here today? If not, I can volunteer some people, but got one there. All right, so does anybody object to moving forward with a quick, short work group on this topic to bring back a recommendation to the HIAC? And accordingly, I guess that recommendation will be made to the agencies that we advise, which are the city and the county government, and to the new COC governing board.
I have no objections other than I wouldn't be able to start a work group until after we are done with nominations for this. I wouldn't be able to do this until May. I'm inundated.
Okay.
Do you want to identify work group members now, or you'll just reach out to folks?
I'll reach out to folks. I think my request is going to be to Jamie and Elvia to both participate. And I would like to ask David Bartholomew to participate if possible, if anybody else has any suggestions. And Kim, of course, as our liaison, would be welcome to be part of that.
Happy to.
Any other suggestions? All right. Homeless Strategy Division updates.
Several updates to share with you, all of which are on the screen there. So at our last meeting, HUD had not yet announced the deadline for the point-in-time submission. That's now been announced. The deadline is April 30th. We will share out results of the point-in-time count at the April 25th Continuum of Care membership meeting. And unbelievably, HUD funding season is upon us. So ESG will come out most likely in June. That's the Emergency Solutions Grant. Last year, that was about $128,000. And then Continuum of Care funding, which is close to $2 million, typically comes out sometime after that, although we never know. But ESG will be coming soon, and the state ESG office has published an ESG 101, has published an invitation for an ESG 101 webinar for folks who might be interested in applying. So I wanted to be sure you all were aware, but also to be sure that the community was aware of that just informational opportunity. When ESG, when the application cycle opens, our office will publish those materials and distribute that out to people, but this is kind of early opportunity to learn more about how that funding works. And the link should be live in the agenda that is in the meeting materials. And then lastly, Nikki Reed from the City of Asheville's Community and Economic Development Department was here with you all at the last meeting to share about the Ramada. The update since then is just that a process is under development by the city to share out how folks can request city funding for permanent supportive housing at the Ramada. So more to come on that, but process is under development now.
Can you remind me of the deadline for the funds that are set aside for the Ramada project?
The original funding that was allocated was 1.5 million, and 500,000 of that was ARPA funding, and ARPA funding has to be allocated by the end of this calendar year. Doesn't have to be spent, but has to be obligated.
So on that last topic, just, I know that, well, Nikki mentioned this to us last month, and I know that the finance group that currently owns the property is eager to hand it off to somebody else, and are looking for people, looking for agencies that can do that. I want to, I think it would be good for the HIAC at least to give a general recommendation of whether we think that project should proceed in some way if somebody comes forward. And we may have short time. So I'm just alerting you, again, since we don't have a quorum today, that we might have a special meeting called at some point in the next few weeks if something comes forward that's firm to move that project forward, just to get a presentation about it and to make, for us to do our job and make a recommendation to the city and county. I think the key things there will be the city funding and other local funding that was intended to go into that project if a new developer is identified. All right, committee updates. Lance?
All right, just a brief update on the nominating and membership committee. This committee over the past several weeks has been reviewing applications and interviewing candidates for the board, the COC board. So by next week, that committee will have decisions on a slate that we will present to the COC membership on April 25th. So next week, once we have that together, those materials will be sent to the COC membership body. So we'll include this slate and all of the applicants' resumes, support letters, and applications, so that they'll have more information to make an informed decision. So again, that next COC meeting is on the 25th of April, where the COC membership will vote on that slate to seat the board of the new COC. So a lot of work has gone into this over the past month or so I'd like to thank the committee for all their work. There are 19 seats on the COC board, so there's been a lot of interviewing going on, and thank you to the city staff as well for coordinating a million different schedules. I know that's been challenging, so, but really, really grateful for the work that's been put into this, and the next milestone for the COC is seating that board, which will happen in the next couple of weeks, so huge milestone for our community.
Great. Any questions? Shelter team, Lacey's not here. Discussion is ongoing about the potential for a new high-access shelter, and the team will continue its work, and presumably this will be a high priority for a subcommittee and the new COC board when that board takes over. I think there are some funds in that potential project as well that would need to be obligated by the end of this year, this calendar year, to make it happen. And
I can add that, and I can't remember the date, probably Emily might. We have invited all the providers to come in and critique the work that has been done up to this point and to get their feedback, and I think that's a critical milestone in the shelter activity to this point, because we need everybody to get behind it and be motivated. So hopefully the direction will still hold, but you got to listen to people who've been providing shelter all over the place and get their feedback to make sure that we're going in the right direction. So I'm really looking forward to that meeting.
any questions? All right, no updates from coordinated entry or funding allocations at this point. Before we do public comment, I just want to identify a few things that I think are important for the HIAC to finish between now and the end of June. We had previously, assuming all goes well with the election of the new governing board later this month, we will no longer be the coordinating governing body for the continuum of care after that meeting. But I do think we have some wrap-up activities. One of them, as I mentioned, could be a recommendation on the Ramada project. I think we should pull together some form of report out to the new governing board, particularly about the priorities that we have pursued over the last 12 months. And I don't think that requires a huge new documentation. I think it's just pulling together all of the pieces that we've developed up to date.
Would that look kind of like our annual report?
Yes, and I'll take responsibility for doing a draft of that, but I think it should be, the HIAC should vote on it at some point. So this is mainly an encouragement to, I'm preaching to the choir for the people who are here, but to make sure that we have a quorum for the next meeting or two that we have so that we can finish up our work appropriately. There may be decisions that need to be made by the city and county. There will be decisions that need to be made by the city and county in terms of budget for temporary shelter beds for next fiscal year. And that's something that they would probably appreciate a recommendation from us about. And then we need to vote to ask them to dissolve this body. So those are all important things to take on, either at the May meeting or at a May and June meeting, but to meet our own goal of disappearing and getting out of the way and shifting our focuses over to the new COC governing board. The next two meetings will be important, and possibly a special call meeting. So reach out to anybody you know who's on the committee, and I will do the same. All right, public comment. Go ahead.
My name's Sarah Dirksen. I'm the Chief Compliance Officer at Elida Homes. I just wanted to provide more light, if it's all right with you, Peter and Elvia, on the question that you asked Elvia to Peter. I can provide some specific example on how youth exiting foster care are being supported through HARC. We're using funds that are from a variety of places, and we actually are in a unique space where our funding has grown over the last several years, and we have more opportunity to do services than we've ever had before. But some of those funding sources are strict, right? We have the Healthy Opportunities Pilot Program, which is through DHHS and Impact Health. And then we also have partnership with the youth homeless, or with the Foster Youth to Independence tenant protection vouchers. And so we have youth who've aged out of foster care and might be moving into a unit that's already been identified that is secured for that youth that's aged out of foster care. But there might be certain things that have to go into place beforehand. Housing Authority has still been trying to get some things together under their feet since some turnover, and so they have taken a little bit longer with getting those vouchers prepped and ready. And so if the voucher paperwork is still being processed, but the unit's ready and the kid's ready, and we need a place temporarily, HARC can come in and say, oh, you need 3 days? Let's just put them in a hotel. And I can't do that. With the DHHS process with Healthy Opportunities, there's money for paying first month rent and security deposit, there's money for utility deposit, there's money for case management, there's not money for application fees, and there's not money for temporary housing. We have a lot of people who have children who need a bridge for a day to 4 days. We also have a lot of people who could qualify for the vast majority of housing that is income-based, but cannot afford to put in their applications. So we're able to cover those bridges as well by partnering with HARC.
I see so many things here. We have so much to talk about within these work groups. The big, huge light bulb went on. I wish we had time to sit, maybe a few 5 minutes, like, to talk after this. I don't want to eat up this mic for everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Any other public comments? Any other announcements or comments from the board? Yeah, hold it, Elvia, you can. Sorry. You just roped yourself into 12 more meetings, but, okay, great. Thanks, everybody. We will be adjourned until May 9th at 9 a.m. Thanks a lot.